department, police department.
Hello, help,
Yes.
please.
On September 14, 2018, a frantic 911 call shattered the quiet evening in a Michigan suburb. A husband claimed he'd found his wife unresponsive in their basement. But what seemed like a tragic suicide would unravel into a disturbing tale of control, deception, and murder. At 8:39 p.m., 37-year-old Jimmy Allen dialed 911, his voice desperate as he reported finding his wife Amy's body in their basement. "She's in the basement. I pulled her up. I tried to give her CPR," he told the dispatcher, his words tumbling out in apparent panic.
Okay, what's going on there?
She's in the basement. Pulled her up. I tried to give her CPR. I pulled her up.
When Officer Ben J. Horn arrived at the scene just minutes later, an eerie silence greeted him. The desperation from the 911 call seemed to have evaporated into thin air. But the moment Officer Horn announced his presence, Jimmy's cries for help suddenly erupted again. Inside the basement, officers found Jimmy sobbing over his wife's unresponsive body, continuing CPR compressions. Amy Allen, just 36 years old, lay motionless with no significant visible injuries, only a faint mark near her jugular. The scene was puzzling from the start.
Department, police department.
Hello, help,
Yes.
please.
How long's she been down? Do you have any idea?
Can't be more than about 20 minutes.
Okay.
As EMTs worked frantically to save Amy's life, Jimmy's behavior became increasingly erratic. One moment he was composed and calm, the next he was having emotional outbursts. In a bizarre display, he dramatically ripped his shirt off and collapsed on the basement floor, only to compose himself moments later. When he walked upstairs and entered the kitchen, he inexplicably unleashed his rage on an unsuspecting bowl of potato chips, sending them flying across the room.
I was irritated and I didn't hear anything, so I went back down to check on her. And
Does Amy have a history of anything like this? Nothing in her background at all?
Ever.
Okay.
According to Jimmy, the evening had started normally. The couple had dropped their daughter Ashley and her friend at a high school football game around 6:30 p.m., then headed downtown for drinks. They visited Ember's Bar and Grill, followed by JR's Hometown Grill and Pub.
Did she make any statements at all?
No, dude, of course.
But during their time at the bar, an argument erupted. Jimmy had brought up the idea of selling their Michigan home and moving back to Florida. They'd only relocated from Florida a year earlier. Amy wasn't receptive to this plan. She became dismissive, texting someone on her phone, and told Jimmy, "I hope that works out for you."
She said a couple times that, oh, that's not going to work, and she's normally positive and was sort of down and negative, and we started to disagree about it, and she's like, I hope that works out for you. And I'm like, what do you mean, me? I'm talking about our life, and this isn't hardcore planning. This is like you talking about, our future. And she just, well, I hope that works out for you.
The tension escalated. By the time they left the bar, Amy decided she'd rather walk home than ride with Jimmy. Surveillance footage confirmed this, capturing Amy walking down the street alone at 7:58 p.m., heading toward their house. Jimmy claimed that when he got home and went to check on Amy around 8:05 p.m., she was in the basement, angry about him accidentally slamming a door in her face as they left the bar. They argued for about 10 minutes before Jimmy went back upstairs, leaving Amy alone in the basement with an extension cord.
She's petting Louie, one of our cats, and what the hell are you doing in the basement? And immediately do that and started, check for a pulse. When I glanced down there, I saw there looked like a upturned kitty litter pail.
Huh.
Because I'm like, like I said, it was just so
Sure.
25 minutes later, when it was time to pick up Ashley from the football game, Jimmy said he went back downstairs to make peace with Amy, and that's when he discovered her hanging. As officers investigated the scene, an EMT emerged from the basement with surprising news. They'd re-established a faint pulse. Amy was still alive, clinging to a thread. But Jimmy's reaction to this hopeful development raised immediate red flags. Instead of relief, he seemed almost frustrated by the news. Officers exchanged concerned glances as Jimmy left the room to change his shirt.
You know, spent all night kind of thinking and playing back what triggered what was.
Has she ever tried anything like this before?
I've never had anything ever. Like, we live a healthy lifestyle, we work out, we go rock climbing 3 times a week in Ann Arbor. We like cook meals at home, we grow our own vegetables out here, money trouble, no, I mean, this is like the pinnacle of, like, you know, best job I've ever had. I make great money. She's a stay-at-home mom. She takes care of the 5 cats, the pool, and is there for my daughter doing sports and activities.
Sure.
Amy was rushed to ProMedica Herrick Hospital just 2 minutes away. Meanwhile, officers began noticing inconsistencies in Jimmy's story. The basement ceiling was remarkably low, only about 7 feet high. Amy stood 5 feet 6 inches. The logistics of hanging in such a confined space seemed questionable. The next morning, officers returned to interview Jimmy more thoroughly. As they pieced together the timeline, they also began uncovering disturbing information about the Allen family dynamics. Amy's relatives came forward with shocking revelations. They described Jimmy as a controlling, manipulative husband who monitored every aspect of Amy's life: her social media, her diet, her daily activities. He had isolated her from her family, including her 18-year-old son Caleb from a previous relationship. When Caleb turned 17 and moved out to live with his grandparents, Jimmy had forbidden Amy from speaking with her own family. The picture emerging was one of domestic tyranny, not the happy family life Jimmy portrayed. 3 days after the incident, on September 17, 2018, Amy was taken off life support. She was pronounced dead, and what had been a suspicious suicide investigation now became a potential homicide case. Investigators dove into Amy's phone records and discovered explosive evidence. Jimmy had been tracking Amy's location constantly, texting her coordinates and demanding explanations for where she'd been. But more significant was the discovery of a 3-year affair Amy had been conducting with a married man named George from the East Coast.
It wasn't so inner-focused and self-focused, and maybe I could have seen things that were going on that maybe could have clued me into what my wife was in so much turmoil that I couldn't even see it. I mean, that's how it feels. Like, I don't even know.
The text messages between Amy and George were explicit and romantic. They'd met twice in person, including once at a hotel. On the very day of her death, Amy had been texting George during family dinner and even at the bar while sitting next to Jimmy. At 5:07 p.m., George had texted, "I wish we could be together right now." Amy responded, "I'm excited to see you again." Even during her final argument with Jimmy at the bar, Amy had been texting George. The affair appeared to be escalating. Just hours before her death, Amy had agreed to meet George again at the end of October.
What kind of a person are you?
I would say I'm a type A personality. I like structure, organization. I'm ambitious. Always seeking to improve myself and others around me. That's why all this is so pressing to me, is because, like, I had really taken measures in the last couple of years to, like, make sure that myself and my family were, like, mentally fit, like, mentally healthy, like, pursuing things that not only get you physical, like, but helping others, being kind, making it, like I said, making the same thing, that type of person I am, making a positive impact on people.
Had Jimmy discovered the affair? Was this the real motive behind Amy's death? Just days after the incident, Jimmy and Ashley packed up their belongings, including their 5 cats, and left Michigan for Jimmy's hometown of Ocala, Florida. To investigators, it looked like a man fleeing the scene of his crime, but Jimmy agreed to return for a formal interview 1 month after Amy's death. During this interrogation with Detective Larry Rothman, Jimmy painted himself as a devoted husband trying to help his socially anxious, introverted wife break free from isolation and video game addiction.
Looking back now, where you're at now, does anything pop out at you?
Yeah, my wife had some issues.
What kind of issues?
She struggled from social anxiety, so she's been like that for years. She's just an extremely shy, introverted person. She never developed relationships. Even when we were in Ocala, she didn't have any friends. She was playing video games compulsively, that World of Warcraft thing. That got out of hand, so she just sort of started isolating herself. And so I had taken measures when we got up here to help her break out of it.
When confronted with evidence of Amy's affair, Jimmy was in complete denial. "I don't think that would be possible," he insisted. "She didn't seem to have the capacity to talk to people." Even when shown printed excerpts of the explicit conversations between Amy and George, Jimmy remained incredulous, asking to see phone records himself.
There was one time when I went to the Isle of Man and hooked up with this chick.
Anytime during your marriage, do you know if she was unfaithful to you?
I don't think that would be possible.
Why is that?
She didn't seem to have the capacity to talk to people, man. She was incredibly introverted.
The case took a crucial turn when Detective Rothman had a breakthrough. Remembering how low the basement ceiling was, he contacted a forensic engineering lab to recreate the scenario. After months of testing, the lab determined something critical. Under the circumstances Jimmy described, Amy's feet would have made contact with the ground during a hanging. This meant she couldn't have died the way Jimmy claimed. A forensic pathologist reviewed the results and concluded the manner of death must have been homicide. On October 16, 2020, 2 years after Amy's death, Jimmy Allen was charged with 1 felony count of open murder. By this time, Jimmy had moved on with his life in Florida. He even had a new fiancée, and their wedding was scheduled just 5 days away.
If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of us, or they can contact us. Okay?
Just how you sleep at night.
Well, I guess I don't understand that question.
Okay.
But Jimmy never made it to his wedding. He was arrested and extradited back to Michigan. When booking officers told him he could contact investigators with questions, Jimmy made a strange comment. "This is how you sleep at night." In September 2021, 3 years after Amy's death, the case went to trial. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence: Jimmy's controlling behavior, the affair that gave him motive, his suspicious actions on the night of Amy's death, the inconsistent physical evidence, and the forensic testing proving Amy couldn't have hanged herself in that basement.
The people want you to believe that Jimmy Allen, for reasons nobody explains or guesses or understands why, snaps after 15 years of marriage, brutally kills his wife, goes up into cover-up mode, does all of this cover-up, and then gets the police there at 8:52 to start showing them evidence of this hanging.